Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a world that is fascinating and, honestly, pretty brutal. It's a place where honesty is a massive liability and lying is an absolute biological necessity. We're going to unpack the actual science behind animal deception. Now think about this. What if lying was literally your only way to survive? As humans, we kind of look down on deception. We see it as a cowardly flaw, something to avoid. But I want you to completely toss that assumption out the window right now. Because in the animal kingdom, deception isn't some moral failing. No way. It is a highly calculated, incredibly effective evolutionary weapon. Mother Nature honestly doesn't care if an animal is telling the truth. She only cares if that animal lives to see tomorrow. So let's dive right into this and see exactly how nature's greatest liars actually pull it off.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the baseline, defensive deception. So the most common motive for biological deceit is pretty simple. Don't become someone else's dinner. And to really understand this, we've got to look at the absolute masters of visual illusion. I'm talking about the mimic octopus. For this creature, its skin is way more than just a covering. It's a highly advanced camouflage system. In literally under a single second, the mimic octopus can completely change its skin color, its pattern, and even its physical texture to blend seamlessly into coral reefs, rocky debris, or just the sandy seabed. It basically edits itself right out of the environment. But here's the wild part. The mimic octopus doesn't just hide. It impersonates. It takes this whole deception thing a step further by shape-shifting into totally different, highly dangerous marine creatures. If a predator gets just a little too close, this octopus will instantly change its shape and how it moves to flawlessly mimic a venomous lionfish, maybe a toxic flatfish, or even a deadly sea snake. It doesn't just look the part, it acts the part, surviving purely by stealing the terrifying reputation of other animals. Okay, let's switch gears to a totally different kind of defense, chemical warfare. Enter the cuttlefish. It's a highly intelligent relative of the octopus, and it uses this mind-blowing multi-step chemical ruse. When it's threatened, it releases a cloud of ink. But wait, this isn't just your standard visual smokescreen. This ink actually contains dopamine, which temporarily paralyzes a predator's sense of smell. Crazy, right? Then, the cuttlefish mixes this dopamine-laced ink with its own mucus to create these smaller, denser clouds called pseudomorphs, which are basically decoys that perfectly mimic the physical shape of the cuttlefish itself. So while the confused predator is visually attacking the decoy and completely chemically blinded by the dopamine, the real cuttlefish just darts away unharmed. It is an absolute masterclass in sensory manipulation. So, we've seen visual and chemical deception. But what happens when the predator already has its claws on you? Well, that brings us to physiological ruses, specifically something called thanatosis, or tonic immobility. This is just the fancy scientific term for what we usually call playing dead. Now, this is an immobile state almost exclusively triggered by a terrifying predatory attack. And here's the key. It's not a conscious choice. The animal isn't just deciding to take a quick nap. It is a hardwired, measurable biological response. And this brilliantly highlights a distinction that a lot of people actually miss. Freezing, like what a deer does in headlights, is a primary defense. That happens before the animal is even detected. The animal just stays upright, hoping to blend in and just, not be seen. Tonic immobility, on the other hand, is a secondary defense. This kicks in after the predator has detected or even made physical contact with the prey. The animal literally collapses. It becomes entirely rigid, completely changes its posture, and its heart rate aggressively drops. That's a condition known as bradycardia. It is a full-body commitment to a life-saving lie. And the most famous practitioner of this? Obviously, the Virginia opossum. When a possum plays dead, I promise you, it's not acting, it's an involuntary physiological response. It literally flips onto its back, starts drooling uncontrollably, and, incredibly, it emits this foul, rotten odor. Now, why go through all that trouble? Because the crucial point here is that most predators are hardwired to only hunt live, fresh prey. By looking and smelling like diseased, rotting meat, the opossum exploits the predator's instinctive fear of infection. The predator gets totally disgusted, walks away, and the opossum eventually just wakes up and waddles off. All right, moving right along to Section 2, the twist, lethal lies and predatory deception. We usually think of deception as a shield, right? Like a way for weak prey to survive. But as we know, evolution doesn't play favorites. Predators use these exact same deceptive tactics, but as a lethal hunting weapon. And that brings us to this concept of aggressive mimicry, essentially playing dead or using a disguise not to hide,
but to attract a very unsuspecting, very unlucky meal.
A perfect example of this is the African sleeper cichlid. It's this predatory fish found in Lake Malawi. This fish will literally lie down sideways on the bottom sediments of the lake and change its skin to this blotchy, rotting, dead fish coloration. It just lies there, completely motionless, in a state of self-induced thanatosis. Then, small scavengers, totally thinking they've just scored a free meal, swim right up to take a bite. And boom, the sleeper cichlid instantly snaps out of its fake death, rights itself, and swallows the scavenger whole. It literally uses the illusion of death to deliver actual death.
Another really incredible predator that uses aggressive mimicry is the bolus spider. Now, this is an arachnid that is completely abandoned to the whole traditional spider web thing. Instead, it relies on some highly specialized chemical warfare. This spider is just incredibly devious. It hangs completely motionless from a single horizontal trapeze line of silk in the pitch dark. Then, and guys, this is the absolute genius part, it emits a chemical odor that perfectly matches the sex pheromones of specific female moths. So male moths, following the scent and totally expecting to find a mate, fly directly toward the spider. Finally, as the moth gets close, the spider swings this sticky blob of silk, the bolus, kind of like a medieval flail, and snatches the moth right out of the air. It's a fatal attraction built entirely on chemical lies. Okay, let's get into section 3, the climax, social and reproductive deceit.
So far, we've mostly looked at the predator-prey dynamic, right? But deception is just as prevalent within a single species, completely dictating complex social hierarchies. Take the fire ant, specifically Solenopsis invicta. In ant colonies, territorial disputes with neighboring colonies are super common and fiercely violent. But young worker ants have really soft exoskeletons. If they get into a brawl with a tougher, older ant, they are going to get crushed. So what do? They use tonic immobility. When confronted by an aggressive older neighbor, the young ant simply drops and feigns death. The older ant, who's just looking for an active threat to fight, totally loses interest and moves on. And the data on this is just amazing. Young ants that use this deceptive strategy actually have a 4 times higher survival rate than those that try to fight. They literally fake it until they make it.
But honestly, perhaps the most extreme example of intraspecies deception happens when it's time to reproduce. Welcome to the highly dangerous mating ritual of the Pissarra mirabilis spider. This is a species where a romantic encounter for the male can very easily result in being eaten alive. So, to survive this little encounter, the male spider relies on a complex mix of bribery and thanatosis. First, the male offers the female a nuptial gift. It's basically a dead insect wrapped in silk, mostly just to keep her mouth busy. But if she finishes eating early or gets a bit too aggressive, the male instantly feigns death. He goes completely rigid. The female, thinking he's dead, will sometimes just drag him around, but she won't attack him. And the very second she relaxes, he springs right back to life to continue mating. The evolutionary results of this deceit are undeniable. Males who deploy this death-feigning strategy achieve significantly higher copulation success and engage in much longer mating durations than honest males. So once again, biology absolutely rewards the best liar.
And that brings us to the core takeaway of this entire explainer. Nature didn't design these animals to be nice, it designed them to survive. Whether it's an octopus changing its shape, a possum smelling like a literal corpse, a spider faking a mating call, or an ant playing dead just to avoid a schoolyard fight, evolution only favors what works. It is pragmatic, it is absolutely ruthless, and it has zero use for honesty if a lie will keep you alive.
So, I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. If the most successful survivors out there are the best liars, how much of the natural world you see every day is actually just an illusion? How much of what we observe is really just a highly evolved magic trick designed to keep an animal alive for just one more day? It really makes you question your own perception of nature, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this sparked your curiosity to look a little closer at the world around you. Because out in the wild, seeing definitely shouldn't always mean believing.